Hello, everyone. You're listening to the Pod of Chaos, where life is messy, magical, a little horse crazy, and never short on stories to tell. Let's dive in. Alrighty. So I'm trying to film today without my microphone. I tried last time with my microphone, and the quality just wasn't really what I was looking for. So you heard my daughter. So if you hear things in the background like that, it's my baby. And if you hear the stroller or the gravel, I'm really sorry. But yes, I am doing a microphone search. If you have a recommendation for a microphone, that would be good to clip to my shirt so that I can record while walking or driving or anything else. Please leave me your recommendation. That would be so appreciated. Anyway, so for the first episode, I was thinking, why not chat about why start a podcast at all? Why did I want to do it? What do I hope to achieve with it? All of that fun stuff. So basically, I have been really into podcasts for probably about a year. Last summer of 2024, I had a horse get super, super, super sick, and podcasts helped me pass the time as I was caring for him around the clock. So I actually started a podcast about that in the fall of 2024, and it's called the Stronger Strides Podcast. I only have one episode out because I then started working full time and I was pregnant and then I had a baby. So I didn't get to continue those episodes. And that podcast is one that isn't really like an on the fly as you go kind of podcast. I was really focused, or am really focused, because I would like to continue it, on sharing the details of what I went through with that horse, because as I was going through it, I really couldn't find anyone else who had a similar experience, despite knowing that it's a pretty common illness for horses. It was really hard for me to find some information, some success stories to try to keep myself going and all of that. So that podcast is still something I would like to pursue when I have the ability to really sit down and record, because I want to have my notes with me and everything. And that one's super focused, super niche. So that kind of was my first little foray into actually creating podcasts. Like I said, I've been a podcast listener and lover for a while now. So why start the Pod of Chaos? Well, earlier this year, I was discussing doing social media stuff with one of my neighbors, and we had all these crazy fun ideas. But of course, logistically speaking, sometimes it's really hard to get people together to really create content and do that kind of thing. So I was like, okay, maybe with this show, I can do some things with her, but at least if I do it by myself, I have the freedom to record as I will, if that makes sense. So I was like, okay, that way it removes anyone's barrier about trying to do something together. And I always, I really like to create. I'm writing a book. I'm not competing my ponies anymore. I do have ponies at home that I am riding and training for my own self, but I'm not competing anymore. I'm on maternity leave. So there's that. And I was like, okay, I just want a space where my randomness, excuse you, bless you. She really doesn't like sneezing. I really wanted a space where my randomness could kind of come together and flow out of me, if that makes sense. So then I started diving into okay, would I do another horsey podcast and just make it broader than the horse that got sick? Would I want to then just focus on maybe books and do a bookish podcast? And then I was like, well, there's so much more to me than one or the other, and just those two things. Like I said, I've got several animals. I've had a kind of interesting road to now. There's just been a whole bunch of things that I've dabbled in that I thought would be fun to bring together. And that way, if I do a non-niche one, if I just kind of throw it out there and talk about whatever, then I'm just not in a box. It also means that I might, lose out on some audience because it's not super niche. So that was something I kind of struggled with, was whether I focus a podcast or not. But alas, I am chaotic, and thus is my life. And so we have the pod of chaos. So yeah, so I kind of was like, we're not going to go crazy focused. We're not going to go crazy niche. We are just going to do it for fun, for like a creative outlet. You never know who you're going to connect with. It also lets me be, like I said, like super random and share like thoughts, and maybe other like bookish, horsey girls might hop on the train at some point. And I've got some like really funny, well, I think they're funny ideas. And hopefully it just kind of helps somebody pass the time. Maybe you're out, walking your newborn as well, and you're into the same things that I am. And we're going to just go on this ride together and see what happens. There is no rhyme or reason or plan or anything. Again, chaos, 100%, every aspect of my life. Why not share it? So yeah, so here we have our creative outlet to chat anything and everything at any time. And on that note, I think I'll share some things that you might expect to come up. So in the bookish world, yes, I'm an SJM girly. I have read Crescent City. I have done ACOTAR, Love, and Throne of Glass. Thank you, Miss Ma'am. You are a queen. We love them. Although some of you might come for me because I have not read Assassin's Blade. As much as I am here for a book to make me cry, I was not ready for that one. So I did not put myself in that position voluntarily. And then, of course, I have also read the Empyrean series by Miss Rebecca Yarros. I've also recently enjoyed the Belladonna books. And what else? One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns were very, very good. So for kind of like the fantasy world, that's kind of where I've been living. And then, like I said, I've recently kind of detoured into the romantic suspense stuff. So I just finished Beautifully Broken Pieces by Catherine Cowles, and I've started her next book. I am listening to the audiobooks because, of course, mom life. And then the cowboy romances, give me Miss Maisie Yates. Like, I think I've read a ton of Maisie Yates books. So those are kind of the starter set of books, if you will. I am sure many, many, many more will come up. And then for the horsey side of things, I started in Hunter Jumperland. I did some dressage lessons, not competing, but dressage is a fantastic foundation for both horse and rider. I did a little bit of jumper, and that was kind of like my English side of things. And I will maybe do an episode going into some journeys because I have hit some hurdles with the horses, let me tell you. Right, so that is the English side of things. On the Western side of things, I actually started riding Western because I had a horse that had essentially slipped a disc in her neck that made her fall like 90% of the time I rode her. And for those of you that don't know, horses carry their weight, like distributing wise, 60% on their front end and 40% on their hind end. And she would always trip in the front end. So riding her English, where everything was, concentrated, although I tried to keep her off her forehand and like elevate her at the shoulder, she would still fall like all the time. And I was like, okay, we are not having any fun. So when I was about, I think 14 or 15, I was like, you know what, I'm going to get a Western saddle because at least all the weight on where you sit and everything already kind of sets you back. And then I can try to work her up from there. And she never fell on me again. So really, I just got a Western saddle to accommodate or complement or kind of make up for the fact that I had a horse that had a little bit of a unique riding need, if you will. From there, I was like, you know what? Actually having a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying this. The horse I had, well, I still have him, but the horse that I had kind of planned to do jumpers with at the time, I was like, this thing is such a powerhouse. It's going to run through the ring with me. Like, we're not going to make it. So I started riding him Western for fun, and it worked out. So then I started pursuing barrel racing. I did some training, some coaching. I went out to Washington to work with or learn from Barb West for a week, came back, kept training him, did some rodeos, got a 3-year-old, which as like a prospect, and she was going to be a barrel prospect, but also a breakaway rope horse prospect. started the training for both events, got farther with barrel racing, but that horse is a whole other story. I swear I could do an episode like per horse explaining the chaos that they are. However, I feel like everybody should take a drink every time I say the word chaos. Anyway, they have all presented me with challenges that I have needed to, adapt, overcome, and change direction on. So that's what the 3-year-old also did. And then right as I was kind of gearing up for my third season of rodeoing is when COVID hit. And then from there, the one horse that I had rodeoed on, he had done enough for me at that point. He had some ulcers. Anybody who's a horsey girl out there knows hauling, no matter what you're competing in or training for, all of that just adds to their strain, which can aggravate ulcers. He's hard to keep weight on. He was getting mature, so I just said, you know what, he doesn't need to do that. So then I put my time and energy focusing on the prospect horse that I had. And we had some moments, wasn't able to do what I had hoped with her. And then now we're here. So the horsey side of things has been a little bit all over. At one time I thought I was gonna, go to the Olympics. That was my goal. And then we switched gears again and again and again. So for books and ponies, that's kind of where we're at. Other than that, I love photography. I love music, who doesn't? We love hiking. And of course, I mentioned I'm writing a book, so I love to write and basically try new things and go on adventures. One thing that I would love to do an episode on is a couple years ago, I went to my very first Ren Fair. I wouldn't say in cosplay because I didn't have a specific character in mind, but I basically wore a corset and boots and fake ears and did my hair fun. Where I met a connection of a connection. So there's a girl that I knew through rodeo who also knew some knights who do literal full contact jousting, which I will do another episode on. So she kind of she wasn't there herself, but she, by way of her, introduced me to one of the knights. And then from there I connected with all of the knights, and the horses ended up coming and staying at our place. And that literally, I don't think I've ever felt so at home, where my horsey love met my fantasy life love and all came together. And the people, I was like, this is just probably the most magical, meaningful happenstance thing that I've ever experienced. So I'm going to talk about that at one point too. But from there, I wanted to get into mounted archery. There's nobody really around me that can teach mounted archery. And then my horse got sick, as mentioned. So that kind of got put on hold. So Ren fairs and the jousting world and mounted archery are some new things that have been floating around my little brain for the last year. But now that we are 3 months, oh my gosh, my baby's 3 months old. 3 months out. I don't know what to say about that. But now that it's been 3 months, I was actually cleared to ride 5 weeks postpartum. I had a C-section. And so I've obviously been riding all summer as much as the weather will allow. We have really, really hot, humid summers where I am. So I kind of ride whenever I get the chance. But I'm hoping that I can, keep the horses going and maybe over the next little while dabble in some new things, because I love to learn. I love to develop. I love to, again, do adventures. So coming back to why start a podcast, it's pretty much to share those adventures, share random thoughts, see what you guys think. If anybody submits anything fun, happy to talk about it. And to go from there. So I guess this is a little bit of a shorter episode on the, real grand scheme of things. I know podcast episodes can run a little longer, but this one I just don't think needs to be. So why start a podcast? Oopsies. So why start a podcast? All of those reasons are why. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you on the next episode.